I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Brian Wilson.
Joining us now on the line is Lanny Davis. Of course, he was associated with the Clinton administration. He's got a book out. It's called Crisis Tales, 5 Rules for Coping with Crisis in Business, Politics, and Lives. Lanny Davis, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Larry and Brian. I was thinking every time I'm on, I give you guys a good idea for earning a better living and doing a better job than you currently do. So I think the Larry and Brian act would make a great stand-up comedy act.
Well,
but we're not trying
not
to be
sure
funny.
how to take that, Lanny Davis.
Well, no, I'll be your
we are
agent.
serious
I
journalists
get
here.
such great feedback from everyone who says, at least you give me a laugh in the morning.
Yeah, well, you give them laughs.
Yes. It's so funny, me or Larry and Brian.
Well, here's something, Lanny, that's an absolute laugh riot, okay? I mean, this will give you a hearty chuckle. The President of the United States is out talking yesterday, because he's really on a campaign, it seems. Doesn't seem to be doing much in the way of legislating or governing, but he's out on a campaign right now, and he says, look, Congress just needs to stop all the hating. Just needs to stop hating all the time, is the exact quote. And then, in sort of another story that caught my attention, I have this email thread from Lois Lerner, in which she describes people who listen to talk radio as crazy, rabid a-holes. Now, tell me, who is demonstrating the hate? The people on Capitol Hill who say, you know what, we disagree with the president constitutionally, we think this needs to be decided in the courts, we're going to file a lawsuit? Or Lois Lerner, who puts out this email where she describes conservatives as crazy, rabid a-holes?
Well, actually, I've been called a few better choice words than myself, so I don't know if she's talking to me or somebody else. I don't use labels, and I hate to respond to somebody who does. I wish Ms. Lerner would just put out all of her emails. Her attorney is a great lawyer, an old friend of mine, Bill Taylor, and I know that he thinks his client is innocent, and I hope that she puts out all her emails so that we can get the full story. I don't think there's really anything there. I never have thought they targeted just conservatives. I think they were doing both sides, but I wish, rather than using labels, that she would just put out all her emails and.
Well, if that were the case, it would seem like it'd make a lot of sense for them to put that stuff out there, but they don't seem to want to do that. But what about the president? The president out there saying that Congress just needs to stop hating all the time.
Well, there is a lot of, you guys have to admit that in the Bush administration, I, as an old friend of Bush's, even though I disagreed with him, I was really strongly against some of the hate rhetoric that came from the liberal side of the spectrum, and I heard it, and I disliked it greatly, and I don't like the venom, that is the only word I can use, it's directed towards Barack Obama, whether he's an American or whether he's a patriot. We can disagree on issues. I think you guys have to admit that there has been some pretty bad rhetoric out of some of the far right.
I would say that when George W. Bush was president, there was an actual discussion of impeachment. There is no discussion of impeachment now. There's discussion of a court case because conservatives disagree.
There was discussion of impeachment about Bush. It was just as absurd as it discussion now. So I think I agree with you guys that this has gone way over the top on both sides, but certainly the talk of impeachment is silly. But I don't have as much criticism for using a lawsuit. I think that's a legitimate way of challenging the exercise of executive power, which has been an argument, by the way. I'm reading a book about the history of America from 1788 to 1815. Great history. And it's amazing how the rhetoric between the Federalists and the Jeffersonians about executive power resembles the proposed lawsuit by Speaker Boehner. I don't have a problem with their taking this to court. I really don't.
Oh, that's great to hear, Lanny, and thank you for that. And listen, when you give honest perspectives like that, despite party label, that's why we love talking to you about issues like this most of the time. Lanny, your latest column in The Hill is very interesting. You say that Americans want a deal maker, not an ideologue, and we've seen your friend, close friend Hillary Clinton, mention things like this. I think she seems to be saying that she's the type of person who's been around town long enough where she can work with people who disagree with her, much like her husband did back in the 90s. Listen, I don't disagree that I think for the general election that's a pretty good strategy, but can Hillary Clinton or any Democrat really get the nomination against people like Elizabeth Warren by saying, vote for me, I'm going to work with the Republicans?
Sure. I really hope everybody who's on my side of the spectrum, and I've been on the left on issues since I'm a kid, and I've been labeled as a centrist or as something else. Labels are really the issue in my column. I say let's look at the exact voting record and positions on issues of Hillary Clinton. She's a traditional progressive Democrat from Franklin Roosevelt all the way through her husband. But she's also somebody, as a progressive Democrat, on every specific issue, so labeled as progressive, right? We don't know what that means. Look at the specific list of her positions on issues today, from pro-choice to pro-environment to pro-Affordable Care Act. And then look at how she reaches across the aisle and works well with Republicans. She was called a workhorse, not a show horse, as a U.S. Senator. And that's what we need from both the Republicans and the Democrats. Be faithful to your philosophy, but then compromise at least to the extent of getting things done by reaching across the aisle. And the perfect is the enemy of the good. If you're poor, if you're out of work, you need politicians to get things done.
But Lanny, the question is, will all those grassroots Democrats who voted for Barack Obama 8 years ago in the primaries, are they going to vote for someone who positions themselves the way you just positioned Hillary Clinton?
So again, great question, and the answer is yes, based on every piece of data. That was not the case in 2008. There was a great attraction to Barack Obama as a transcendent political figure, as an African American, as a great candidate and a great liberal. And she did lose a great many liberals, including my oldest son, Seth Davis, who supported Barack Obama, to my heartbreak. But that has changed.
Do you think now in this
I write
climate?
In the Hill.com poll today, 76% of all people who call themselves liberals are for Hillary Clinton, and only 6% think she's too conservative. That's the 6% that would rather do nothing and lose 49 states than actually help the poor, help the middle class, help get people back to work.
All
So
right.
that's really the only thing you can say about Hillary Clinton is that she is fact-driven, solution-driven.
Yeah, all right. You can pay for the time next time, Lanny. My goodness. Lanny, can I ask one quick follow-up?
Once you get me started on Hillary, you know it's
I know. And one quick follow-up. You just said something about how she's in the grand tradition of Franklin Roosevelt and the centrists. Do you think Franklin Roosevelt would have praised Saul Alinsky's tactics the way Hillary has?
Well, Saul Alinsky was back, 40 years ago? And
and he was a radical. Franklin Roosevelt stood for pro-American positions.
Community organizing. I was a 60s baby boomer, but that's a long, long time ago. I think Franklin Roosevelt, when he was young, was for a lot of things. When he became president, it's amazing when you consider.
Well, I think when you
ran unbalanced budget as his key program in 1932.
Yes,
so he evolved over time.
I think when you compared Hillary Clinton to Franklin Roosevelt, you were talking about Franklin Roosevelt, the president, not the. So you're saying that Hillary has changed her views on Saul Alinsky since she's gotten older and more wise?
Well, I haven't changed my views on him. I think that his methods were very important in organizing poor people.
All right.
On his ideology, as I recall, when we read studies of his work in Chicago, I think his ideology was way out of the mainstream, and that's not where Hillary is.
Thank you for clarifying that.
As a liberal, she votes on positions as progressive Democrats from Roosevelt.
Right.
Bill Clinton
Okay.
would vote.
Okay.
We went over. Thank you, though, Lanny. I
We're way
appreciate your
over.
time.